Welcome back to Well, That's Interesting, the Oh Hell Yeah, More Bones edition. Today is episode 256, 800-year-old corpse in well, Verifies Norse Saga, and this 26-million-year-old hornless rhino was the largest land mammal so far. My friends, if you've joined us last week for our Halloween extravaganza, hopefully by now you've unfurled yourself from the protective fetal position you found yourself in after learning about two recent explosions on the sun's surface. These events were so large, so ferocious, the only way to grasp their scope was to use our planet, our entire planet, for scale. There was a solar tornado, yes, a tornado of sorts, the height of 10 Earths, and an eruption about 15 and a half Earths wide. They occurred at the same time, and there's a photo over at the old socials if you want to see them. Earlier in that perfect episode, thanks to 300-million-year-old fossils, we found out who was the owner of the sharpest teeth to ever exist, and those creatures were full of horrifying surprises. I'm not going to give anything away here, so if you haven't had a listen, you should. Today, we're keeping the macabre spirit alive with more bones. In the first half of the show, I'm going to need you to bundle up because we're heading to the present-day city of Trondheim, Norway, where in 1938, excavators investigating castle ruins poked their heads over the side of a well. And lo and behold, it was filled with stones. Well now, if you're an archaeologist and you see something like this, well, that's a telltale sign of humans wanting to cover something up. Over 20 feet of curiously smooth stone was lifted, and what was found under them eventually led to the confirmation of an ancient tale of battle, one for the title of king. We will learn more than we ever wanted to about the chaotic history of Norway. We will meet the original crew who found the skeletal remains of a man in this well. We will meet the modern team from the Norwegian Directorate for Cultural Heritage who decided to return to this well to find the exact same body and perform carbon dating and DNA analysis to identify him. Yeah, they found the body. And yeah, those tests were performed. The results show that sometimes there's a whole lot of truth in sensational stories. Then after the break, we're moving on from human remains to the remains of a newly discovered species of Paraceratherium. That's a big-ass word for a big-ass creature. It's the name of a genus of animals that lived 34 to 23 million years ago, and honestly, the best way I could describe them is if a giraffe, rhino, and an elephant had a really great time. You'd end up with what is now 4 of the species that makes up this group. The bones of lucky number 4 were found in 2015, and after 6 years of analysis, it's safe to say that this was the largest land mammal to ever walk our Earth so far. We will dive deeper into what in the holy hell Paraceratheriums were exactly, and where they once roamed. We will meet the team that made one of the largest discoveries in recent history. Literally. And our jaws will drop at its heft and photos of its bones. I have four words for you, y'all. Neck vertebra. Too big. In the meantime, hi, I'm Jill Chacha, and if this is your first time listening, welcome to the flock, my appropriately sized business goose. To begin, I'm going to need you to forge as much armor as your body can possibly carry, and to bring more hand sanitizer than you think is necessary, because we're about to venture through a time period and a land bubbling with such tumult that those who rise to power see their days numbered. Here, civil war is a daily occurrence, humans are expendable, and rumors and conspiracies seem to travel faster than light. Okay, at this point, I could see your concerned yet confused reaction from here. It's saying, Jill, this sounds like it could be anywhere for the past 4,000 years. You're going to have to get, specific. Where are we? When are we? And why are you endangering my life? Well, you're right. Let's get hyper-specific. I've just dialed the time machine way the fuck back to Norway in the 990s. Yes, you heard me. When the year was on the verge of 4 digits, but just under. If you draw a teardrop and elongate the tail, and curve it to the right, you've got yourself the country's shape. And if you point to the very top of the bulbous part, that's where we are, in the newly established town of Nidaros, which translates to the city that lies at the mouth of the river Nid. Over the past several years, hometown hero and Viking Olav Tryggvason, nailed it, led forces south through Germany to England, and all places in between, and they did what Vikings do best. By 997, after a marriage to a German princess and the amount of wealth Olav had accumulated, he transformed Nidaros, what was a teeny town by a random river, into the country's capital, and for the next 500 years, the seat of the Catholic Archdiocese in Norway. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to appreciate and understand the level of violence of these times to help explain why, eventually, a man ends up in a well. And to do that, let's go back to Tryggvason, who as a youth had been partaking in good old-fashioned raids, and as you could assume, that kind of childhood really primes you for success when you live in the Viking Age. Just 2 years before our newly minted capital, in 995, our wildly successful Olav took his winning spree to the next level by killing the king's son and tracking said king to a farm in the Rhin, where the king was doing what kings do best. He was having an affair. According to a legend titled The Saga of King Olav Tryggvason, standing before a group of local farmers, within earshot of the farm, Olav gave a speech, and a speech that was thankfully to the point. Simply, he would reward any man who could harm Håkon Sørgensen with riches beyond his dreams. Håkon, hiding away in the farm, heard this loud and clear. And he wasn't alone. His enslaved servant, Tormod Kark, was beside him. After what I can only assume was an awkward pause, a terrible scene unfolded, one ending with the king's decapitation. Tormod brought this head to Olav in one hand, expecting a reward in the other. But let's just say another terrible scene unfolded. Olav was appalled at the idea of an enslaved person breaking code and murdering his own lord. And so, even though Olav said any man who could do harm would be rewarded, there was a hidden asterisk here. Tormod Kark, enslaved, was himself decapitated. Now, that's awful, but don't worry. It gets worse. Legend has it both heads were set on stakes in Munkholmen for people to spit at. And while you're imagining that, do me a favor, will you? Put a pin in what's called sagas. We're going to get back to it. So, with headless Tormod performing Olav's dirty work, Olav was rewarded with a crown and reigned from 995 to the year 1000. And I can see your thoughts from here. I think you're thinking, wow, I love that for him. But also, only 5 years? I mean, he was doing so well between all the pillaging and the homicides. What happened? Why so short? Well, I can tell you, my dear soft business goose, but I'll need you to imagine a revolving door first. Through that revolving door, for the next 200 years or so, please envision a parade of rival kings, pretenders, outside invaders who will stop at nothing to wear that same crown. And, being that the traditional Norse warrior ideal called for the king at the time to lead his men from the front of the battle line, well, let's just say it didn't always go well for him. For example, in the year 1000, in the western Baltic Sea, Olav found himself sailing into a cluster of enemies who united against him, an alliance of the kings of Denmark and Sweden, and just about everyone he offended in Norway. The battle ended in Olav's death, and in Norway divided into a three-way where the Danes controlled the kingdoms of Viken, and two earls/brothers named Eric and Sven Håkonsson, who ruled western Norway and Trondelag, or Trondelag. This is going to be a very tough episode. Now, it sounds unusual that this was divided into three people, but please, file this under random shit stored in your brain that's really only helpful 1 or 2 times in your life, this being one of them. Yeah, at the time in Norway, you could brutalize your way to the top, but there were succession laws. For example, all the king's sons, legitimate and illegitimate, had equal right to the throne, and it was customary for a pair of brothers to rule the kingdom together. Sometimes it went well. Sometimes it did not, as we will see. Put another pin in this. In the meantime, this three-way lasted for a scant 15 years, when a new Olav II Haraldsson, a king's descendant, scooched in with a cross and a plan saying, "Hey girl, I found out about this thing called Christianity, and it's a super cool way to gain more power and land for the monarchy and centralize control throughout a fractured country." And you know what? It worked. Yeah, how crazy is that? Using religion as a veil to hide ulterior motives. It's a good thing that's the last time that happened. Anyway, Olav II's reign turned the brutality and the Christianity dial up to 100 for the next 13 years until he died, and Denmark returned. Specifically a Dane called Knut the Great, spelled C-N-U-T, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but really, am I? Knut oversaw Viken for only 7 years, and the rest of Norway saw rulers for even less time. Literally, like one dude for a year and another for 5. From 1035 to 1130, over 100 years, there were 10 different men who came and went thanks to war or illness. Case in point, there was a boy king for a minute. He was named, you guessed it, Olav. This time, Olav Magnusson, who fell ill and perished at 17. His 2 older brothers, who were illegitimate sons of none other than Magnus Barefoot, co-ruled thereafter. And boy howdy, did they love crusading, which was extremely fashionable at the time. Are you tired yet? Yeah, me too. Not only from telling you this, but I had to research all of it. And let me tell you, I will take a medical case full of parasites before I do anything about royalty again. Anyway, here we are in the year 1130. And guess what? Now what's called the Civil War era begins. Yeah, now, not those other times. Oh, no. All prior battles for the throne were following those succession laws. Here, this wasn't really the case. There were no new sons being had, and all the old sons were coming out of the woodwork. Here's what I mean. Over the next 50 years, several men would come to power, and each was replaced, not by an heir, but by those claiming to be the son of some other king at some point, and they used spectacularly violent methods to prove their case. In fucking addition, after washing off all the blood and donning the crown, a new king found themselves having to share the title amongst multiple brothers or half-brothers who also claimed to be a descendant from some fucking guy. So share it, or else. It was a mess. But that didn't stop big dreamers. If you felt you were a descendant and you wanted to throw your own dick into the ring, to get to the top during the Civil War era, all you had to do was rile up one of 2 political groups which developed over this time and to make them pledge your undying loyalty to you. Again, good thing this is the last time that happened. One of those parties were the Baglers, a faction of Norwegian aristocrats, clergymen, and wealthy merchants, the 1%, if you will, representing a more established and traditional power base in society. Their goal was to assert the influence of the aristocracy, have the church puppet the monarchy, and above all, control the succession of kings. The Birkebeiner was our other political military party that solidified in 1174. I assume it took a bit longer to produce a coherent ideology because, well, let's just say it included everyone else. Just the name, for instance, Birkebeiner, translates to birch legs or birch feet, referring to the economically poor supporters of this party who wore shoes made out of birch bark to protect themselves from the fucking cold. The name was originally meant to be an insult, but it was later adopted by the faction with pride. At the end of the day, the Birkebeiner supported, air quotes, pretenders to the throne, who stood against the established ruling party and the goals of the Baglers. Again, good thing this is the last time any of this happened. When the year 1177 came around, something remarkable did happen. Sverre Surgudson assumed power as the leader of the Birkebeiner, thanks to his presumed origin story. When he turned 30-ish, his mother had a confession. Sverre was really the son of King Sigurd Munn, whose reign ended just 20 years ago in 1155. It is you, Sverre, who should be king, not the current guy, Magnus Erlingsson. Ugh, barf. Oh, and happy birthday. With this revelation, Sverre rallied Birkbeaner troops who, newly inspired and organized, strapped on their birch bark and hoisted sail for a naval battle in 1184. Outnumbered 14 ships to 26, they fucking won. The king was dead. Long live the king, now Sverre Sigurdsson. And everyone lived happily ever after. Of course not. Although Sverre's legacy includes establishing the House of Sverre, a royal dynasty that ruled Norway for over a century, creating one of the longest continuous lines, creating a national identity and the foundation for the modern Norwegian state, and for saying, hey bitch, the government should govern the people, not the church. Despite all of this, the Civil War era was in no way extinguished. The Baglers were hella pissed about this guy. So, he must be removed. Which brings us to 1938. So join me, will you, at Sverresborg Folk Museum, located in the old capital of Norway with a new name, Trondheim. When King Sverre took power, he did what kings did before him, take up residence in Nidaros, now Trondheim. His castle was aptly named Sverresborg, and even today, its ruins still stand, and you can totally meander through them thanks to the preservation efforts of the museum, which, in 1938, was managed by Sigurd Tiller. He and self-taught archaeologist Gerhard Fischer were having the goddamn time of their lives meandering the grounds themselves when they came across a well. And if you drop whatever bones you're holding right now and pick up your phone to tap on today's post at the socials, you're going to see a photo of this well full of water and surrounded by native flowers and grass and shit. It's lovely. It's a scene any one of us would walk by and exclaim at pleasantry and move on. But old Sigurd and Gerhard's spidey senses were tingling. We should look in the well. What they saw was a 21-foot pile of submerged stones. And deep down in their Norwegian bodies, they felt they may have just stumbled upon a piece of 800-year-old history. 1, put a pin in that. And 2, let's unpin that previous pin from before, the one about sagas. The first words of the Sverris Saga were scribed in 1185 under Sverre's direct supervision, because the first draft of history is written by the winners, and the winner here was Sverre. The saga's 182 verses tell the tale of his life and the events that took place during it. One of those being the Battle of Sverresborg Castle in 1197. As reported by Norwegian SciTechNews.com, the one and only, this was when, quote, the Baglers coerced the fortress steward, Torstein Kugad, to leave a door unlocked. They surprised the men in the fortress during supper and raided the place. Although the inhabitants' lives were spared as Torstein Kugad had negotiated, a significant event followed. The Baglers took all the valuables in the fortress, burned down all the buildings, and then threw a dead man head first into the well, covering it with stones until it was full. End quote. Well, my secure business goose, the Baglers had reappeared, and they set their sights on Sverre's castle, his supporters, their homes, and the goddamn town itself. It all burned. And although the saga mentions no casualties, I can't help but point out the dead guy they threw down the well. Who was he? Where did he come from? What group did he belong to? Was he already dead when they tossed him in there? I, like you, and savagely nerdy archaeologists like old Sigurd and Gerhard have so many questions. The saga, though, doesn't provide any answers. If this event did take place, and there's actually a body in the well, it would have to be found and examined. Well, guess what? A well's been found, a well with stones in it, and it's all right next to Sverre's castle. Oh, by the way, Sverre, totally fine. He was wintering in a town called Bergen, so it's not him, but are you still excited? Good. Let's get into it. Let's head back to 1938. My friends, not only were we excited, but all of Norway was flipping out. A partial excavation was performed, and if you swipe past the photo of the well on our socials, you'll see a screenshot of a local newspaper's front page. And the results. It reads, quote, "Remarkable historical find at Svearsborg. Skeleton at the bottom of an old well. Could it be the Bagler's victim, thrown into the well in 1197, as the saga exclaims?" End quote. Yeah, a body was found at the bottom of the well, and yes, I have photos of it. Thank me later. At the time, the front page printed a question for the ages. If old Sigurd and Gerhard could link the remains to the 12th century with forensic evidence, it would confirm a legend, a saga. It would be a first. But there's a problem. Actually, there were two problems. One, it was 1938. Ain't no DNA test could be performed. And honestly, look at those bones. They were stripped bare. There's no clothing or personal items that could be found that could even tell us who this was. And two, it was 1938. A little thing called World War II was about to begin, turning Europe into a hellscape. Faced with such a hurdle, between war and a painstaking excavation and study that would certainly take years, old Sigurd and Gerhard had to do the unthinkable. They left the body where it was and returned the stones, all in hopes that this scene would survive modern-day carnage and they could get back to it. Well, I can assure you, Svearsborg survived. Unfortunately, though, post-World War II, other things took priority, and our well man was not one of them. For 80 years, there he remained. But he wasn't forgotten. Join me, now, will you, with Anna Petersen, an archaeologist with the Norwegian Institute for Cultural Heritage Research, Professor Michael D. Martin of the Norwegian University of Science and Technology's University Museum in Trondheim, evolutionary genomicist, Michael Martin, he deals with genes. He's from the Norwegian University, and their colleagues in 2014. They were all like, whatever happened to that dude in the well? And so, thus began a brand new investigation, and with it, the use of magnificent, powerful technologies that would have no doubt caused hysteria and have the team burned at the stake if Sverre witnessed their witchery. Anyway, the technology would come later. First, they had to get our guy out of the fucking well. And that was a journey in itself. Quote, "Apart from a few photos and some sketches, documentation from the 1938 excavation was lost, leaving archaeologists uncertain about where to dig or whether the skeleton had even survived the intervening decades. The practical challenges were immense. It was muddy, slippery, and deep, and the small opening was filled with large stones we had to lift out one by one," said Anna Petersen to Norwegian SciTech News. "I think we were all operating on adrenaline from beginning to end." End quote. That adrenaline rush was a thrill, I'm sure, but it came in second to the actual find. Petersen described uncovering the body as, quote, "one of the most powerful experiences I've had as an archaeologist." End quote. And if you would like to experience the same exact thrill, you can open up today's post and have a peek at what is left of our well man. I'll give you a sec. Yeah, that's a nearly complete skeleton, but not much else. The team didn't have much to work with, but damn it all, they were still going to make it work. First came the carbon dating of the bones, and holy shit, wouldn't you know it, the results showed he lived in the late 1100s. Second came analysis of those stones, which according to the website weren't just any stone. They were finely cut soapstone, a type used for windowsills, door jambs, and the stairs of castles. And these, as you could tell by the photo of one of them at our socials, were wonderfully smooth. They were well made and well kept. And they matched those of Svearsborg. Third came an even more in-depth analysis of the body, and it took another entire village to perform the forensics needed to get definite answers. A member of this village was Han Ekstrom Jordal. Nailed it. An osteoarchaeologist who determined that our well man was in his 30s at the time of his death and between 5'7", 5'9" inches tall. And his death, it was gruesome. Those holes there, in his skull as shown in today's corresponding photos, say it all. Quote, Presumably the injury occurred when he was clubbed in the head with a blunt object. I have conferred with a pathologist at St. Olav's Hospital that he did not think the injury was fatal, although it probably knocked him unconscious. Yordle told SciTech News. However, when I examined the inside of the skull, I found some small pits and furrows, a sign of brain aneurysms. The head injury may have caused these blood vessels to rupture, which led to a brain hemorrhage. If that had happened, the head injury may have been an indirect cause of death." End quote. Well, so far, we have placed Wellman at the scene, very much at the time, and covered in the stones which built the castle. And his head, possibly bludgeoned, left him unconscious at the bottom of that structure. With each passing result, it's looking like the saga was more non-fiction than we could possibly imagine. This is all quite a bit of evidence, but was he from Norway? And if so, what region? That could tell us whose side, if any, Wellman fought for, and provide so many more answers. Needless to say, finding soft tissue for a DNA sample was a bit of a challenge. Martin Elgard, yet another member of this forensic village, had just started his PhD in population genetics and archaeological DNA at the NTNU University Museum. With so much to prove, he spent an entire year in the lab, quote, trying again and again and again with different methods to find viable samples. In the end, I obtained DNA, which, without comparison, is the worst thing I've ever worked with, end quote, he told SciTech. Yeah, poor Martin scraped just about every inch of this dead guy, and the best sample came from a root inside a tooth. After the clickety-clack calculations were made, the data was shocking. From Frid Hansen of SciTech News, quote, "Even though political opinions are not preserved in the DNA, the assumption has always been that he was from an area of mid-Norway called Trøndelag. What we see in the analysis is actually a bit of the opposite. They show that he is, quite unequivocally, from Agder. That is to say, he is most similar to the population that is in Agder right now. Agder is an area in southernmost Norway, southwest of Oslo," end quote, said Martin. My friends, Agder belonged to the Baglers. So what the fuck is a dude from this region doing all the way up here in Birkebeiner country, possibly bludgeoned and at the bottom of a well in Nidaros, now Trondheim? That's the new question for the ages, and the exact answer we may never know. Maybe he actually felt passionate about what the Birkebeiner stood for, and made the trek north, becoming one of Sverre's men. Perhaps he was merely a stonemason who worked on the castle and was at the wrong place at the wrong time. During those tests, a coating called pleural plaque was found on the inside of his ribs. It's a residue left over in connection with certain diseases associated with dust, so this has led to theories that he may have been a stoneworker. Perchance, it could be both. As to why in the holy hell you throw a body down a well to begin with, the team has some theories, and we've actually spoken about them on this show before. Early biochemical warfare. The Baglers may have tried to use the corpse as a way to poison the town's drinking water. So, some questions surely remain, but it's clear to me, these Baglers were assholes. After the break, we're leaving northern Norway for northwestern China and human remains for the bones of a prehistoric creature so large it currently holds the record for the largest land mammal ever discovered so far. It's too big, and it's next. Stay tuned.
New Icy Hot Nighttime Recovery relieves pain at nighttime while your body recovers. Icy Hot, you're so back.
This episode is brought to you by eBay. Buying parts for your car? You'll know that will it work feeling. But on eBay, buying parts is different. eBay's free returns means if it doesn't fit, or if it isn't what you expected, you just print a label, drop it off, and get your refund fast. No haggling, no stress, and at least 30 days to return any eligible item. Millions of parts, free returns. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
And we're back. We are so back. And my friends, if we're going to talk about the largest land mammals to ever grace our magnificent planet, we first need to talk about their habitat. As you can imagine, these beautiful fuckers needed a lot of room. So please, if you will, picture the Earth. Thank you. Rotate that globe until you see India. Fantastic. Now starting at northern India and moving counterclockwise, draw a circle that also contains all of Nepal, Bhutan, Tibet, northwest China, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, and Pakistan. We can now close the circle because we are back in northern India. Between 34 and 23 million years ago, during what's called the Oligocene era, a peculiar genus roamed these lands, migrating back and forth as the climate fluxed between arid conditions and wet. What they were chasing was lush flora consisting of relatively soft leaves and shrubs, which was believed to be broken down by a digestive process similar to horses and rhinos. This means very little nutrition was extracted from its food, and thus they'd have to plow through large volumes to survive. We're talking hundreds upon hundreds of kilos a day. For comparison, the African elephant, considered to be the largest living land mammal in the world, clocks in at 23 feet long, 12 feet tall, and typically weighs 4 to 7 tons. To support themselves, they can eat up to 300 to 600 pounds a day. The genus we're talking about today, and the new species found belonging to it, blows the elephant away. They probably vacuumed up way more than that. May I introduce you to Paraceratherium, a genus of extinct hornless rhinoceratoids that, if you mold together the body of said elephant with a rhino, stick a slightly reduced giraffe neck to it, and top this off with a rhino face lacking the horn we're so familiar with, there you go. I also have an artist's rendering of it, of one species over at the socials. If you're finding yourself saying, what the fuck are you talking about? That's not supposed to happen. I can't put that together. Well, I assure you, nature made this happen. On average, again, this is average now, their length was about double that of African elephants, about 24 feet. At the shoulder, their height was about 15 feet, so 3 feet taller. And their weight, dear God, their weight is estimated to have been 15 to 20 tons. That's 33,000 to 44,000 pounds. Y'all, that is the combined weight of about 4 African elephants. I said they're too big, and I meant it. And good news, a newly discovered species is above average. So join me, will you? Within the rose-colored mountains of the Linxia Basin in Gansu Province, northwestern China. And for my fellow geographically challenged Americans who are saying Linxia what now? Don't worry, I've got you. Head on back to the circle you just made, and we're about to make a smaller circle in this. Point to Tibet, and draw the circle so it includes the northeast of Tibet and a chunk of northwest China. This basin is the gift that just keeps on giving when it comes to fossils from the Oligocene era. It contains a delicious 100-meter-thick layer chock full of ancient bovids, rhinocerasins, and micro-mammals, which is just a fancy way of saying cows, rhinos, and teeny mammal ancestors. And as reported by Laura Gegel of Life Science, researchers have known about the fossil trove at Linxia Basin since the 1950s, when farmers there began discovering what they called, quote, dragon bones. Now, you cannot throw a stone here without hitting the remains of some long-lost creature. So back in 2015, during a wildly successful excavation, a number of those remains contained not a dragon, but something damn close. Now, if you're a long-time listener of this show, then you know, when paleontologists get their hands on a sweet, sweet cache of bones, each fragment needs to be screened, filed, and stored. This can take years. What I mean to say is that 6 years later, it was time for certain bones to shine. In 2021, lead researcher Deng Tao, director and professor at the Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology at the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing, Deng dropped a mic of colossal proportions. In a paper titled An Oligocene Giant, let me try that again, An Oligocene Giant Rhino Provides Insights into Paraceratherium Evolution. Goddamn. Within the 2015 haul, Deng and the gang discovered a complete skull and jaw of one giant rhino individual and 3 vertebrae from another, both dating to the Oligocene era some 26.5 million years ago. And after all the clickety-clack calculations were made, wouldn't you know it, they were from a completely new species, Paraceratherium lynchiense, named after the location from which they were dug up. This had a giant head, 3 feet 7 inches long, a long neck that we will talk about in a minute, 2 tusk-like incisors that pointed downward, and a deep nasal notch, indicating that the animal had, quote, a trunk like that of a tapir. The giant rhino likely wrapped its trunk around branches so it could easily strip off leaves with its front teeth, end quote, Tao said to Laura of Life Science. And if you just said to yourself, what the fuck is a tapir? Imagine if a pig had a snout a few inches in length. Yeah, I know, today is quite the day for animal mashups. Anyway, P. lynchiense had a goddamn 3-foot-long skull, y'all. And this was held up by a neck containing vertebra you need to see to believe. Drop whoever's neck you're holding right now and pick up your phone. Take a look at today's post, swiping past the dead body, and you will see Deng with his arms outstretched. Below him is 1 vertebra. Yeah, it's nearly as long as his wingspan. When scaling up, all this means P. lynchiense was approximately 26 feet long, 16.4 feet tall at the shoulder, and it weighed as much as 24 tons. Round of applause. Now, why the fuck do we need to know such a breathtaking monster existed? Well, 1, lynchiense reveals how this genus evolved as they migrated across Central and South Asia. 31 million years ago, the Mongolian plateau, located at the very top of our large circle, it dried up. So our giant-ass friends migrated southwest to Kazakhstan and then Pakistan. Over millions of years, the climate changed once more, forcing the animals now back east and up north across the Tibetan plateau to Linxia, where the environment was wetter and plants just flourished. Essentially, lynchiense is the descendant of those from Pakistan. And just like us, they made a big-ass circle in the name of survival. And 2, their migration shows us that what is now the world's highest and broadest plateau, with an average elevation of approximately 4,500 meters or 14,800 feet, the Tibetan plateau may have actually been under 6,600 feet during their lifetime. This scant height for a creature so tall allowed for easy passage. They found nirvana in Tibet, if you will. And there they evolved into the world's largest land mammal. It's symbolic. And thank you for listening, rating, subscribing, telling your friends about that old dead body in a well in Norway. They're going to want to know about it. Of course they're going to want to know. And then tell them about all the horrible things, though, that led up to it. Don't forget to tell them all of that. It's violent. And then this fucking thing, this gigantic hornless rhino. Just gigantic. It's just too... I can't. And a chonky as fuck thanks to the folks over at Airwave Media, the podcast network to which WTI belongs. If you love this show, and you do, you love the other podcasts in this family. And please, stay interesting.